I'm just going to have a single video finishing off both of these two-part videos that we started for the header panel and the fender.
Right, like I said before, while you're doing a project, it's best to have two things going if you got the space to do it, because we're doing fiberglass over here, we're knocking dents out, sanding, bondoing, and what you got now in primer is two fenders that have had all the undercoating and fuzzy rust wire wheeled off and sanded, and now it'll be primed, and then he's going to finish it in the hot rod black. But this way everything will be black under there, and if you're ever lifting up a hood or anything, you might not think it ever shows, but it does. If somebody else is ever underneath there, they'll see gray. We just want everything all blacked out. Now we can flip it over. We've got some final sanding to do. We'll put the heavy sanding, heavy fill primer on the other side. So you'll see this, we got the little dents all knocked out. The bottom patch down here still has to be blocked out. The front end was dented up, and that's knocked out and primered. And you'll see this nose that was fiberglass, this thing was so flimsy you couldn't even pick it up. Now it's rock solid, and it's been fiberglassed. It's been formed out with a layer of Bondo. We still got to do a little bit of finish. You want to get the creases nice and crisp lines, and then do some sanding on the Bondo, and with the heavy primer, then when we block it out, it should be nice and straight. I'm trying to get this at a decent angle. You got to get the right tool to fit into every area. It's a lot of work. That's all you can say, is you got to just keep on going and going and going, and try to set a goal. And we want to get this done by this weekend, because there's a hell of a lot more to go. It just never ends, so you got to try to get one little hurdle taken care of.
This is a 2K primer on these. Now to block these out again. And then we're going to put an extreme high build primer on them. There's quite a few small imperfections that you probably can't see on the camera.
So you'll see as you're sanding, you're only getting, that much sanding, but you just got to keep moving until the sanding block changes the color of the primer from a dull to a sanded look. And you can see imperfections. And when they go away, then you move on. Anytime you got a thing with all these different contours, you got to keep moving. Don't dig a groove. And then we'll take a fine little block and try to blend, because it's just a bunch of facets, really. You're trying to go, you can go like that and connect them all. But you can see the color change as it goes from sprayed on paint to sanded primer. Same thing as when you're color sanding the car after it's been painted. You're just trying to knock down that just painted look. Now you're probably saying, why are they worrying about this when they're going to be putting the thick build primer? Well, any flaw that has highs and lows, if you can sand away where the highs are, then the primer has filled up the lows, and you keep on leveling it out more and more. You don't want primer that thick, you know, but we've gotten it to the point where the imperfections are small, but there's still imperfections, and you're filling up the low spots and knocking off the high spots. And it's going to get more level. This is a really contoured piece, you know, the front nose. And every once in a while, knock off all this powder because you're just breathing in. Connect all the little grooves. I'm using a sharp edge. So it makes it more uniform. Bad lighting right here. Shadows. You'll see places where we blew through, you know, there's no primer on it. Well, we're going to be putting more primer on it, so we've made it more level. That's about it. After we block this out, then we're going to be putting epoxy primer on for a finish, and it's going to turn out ultra straight.
It is the winter time, but we haven't got any moisture at all in our filter since we've added the dryer and changed up the tank configuration. So that's working out well too.
You can see where this nose was all bashed up and busted, and we fiberglassed it, bondoed, and now with the thick primer. You got crease lines that are nice and straight, and everywhere there was a crack was gouged out and fiberglassed, and you cannot tell where any of them have been done. I mean, that's pretty cool. Down here where the patch was done, you know, a piece of metal was welded in, you can't see that. Up here, this was all dented up, and we pounded it out. Even when it was in bare steel, I was sanding out, we had a few high spots, tapped them down, and we did Bondo, then some high spots reappeared. There's always a fly in the ointment, and you got to keep eliminating them. But by the time we got that all leveled out, you will not even be able to tell that was ever crunched in up there.
I'm getting ready to paint the back of these three pieces with hot rod black. That way everything will match inside there. This Fender here was lucky enough to get an epoxy primer. Here you can see we have our patch seam sealed up from the back side. This is a piece of metal I took out of there. There was a comment on the last video about just stuffing Bondo into a rust hole. The previous guy that did the bodywork just shoved Bondo into a rust hole, and it probably held up for a couple years, but it didn't really stand a chance and it bubbled out. This Bondo here is a great backing, so it should last a long time. There's other areas in the car where similar type bodywork was done, and when we get to the back we'll look at that. This piece kind of looks rough from the backside still, but you're not going to see any of that. At least it's all one color now.
Our first metal patches bondoed, then sanded down. Now it's the thick primer, and this is just like you're spraying on leveling Bondo, and there's no way you could ever spread Bondo and feather it out as good as this is going to be. And you want to have your body line, this is just a rough couple times, but you don't want to take the paint off. Paint never adheres to that sharp line as much as it's going to lay on here. I mean, you can spray this on here and where can it go? It's just going to lay. If you're on this, you know, it's going to roll off. Gravity wants to take it, so you get thin on these creases. But you want a nice sharp crease, but you don't want to wear it off. So you got to come right to that crease. Don't roll over it. Some guys tape it up. You just make more of a mess. But you'll see it. It'll come out, and then you'll, after it's all finished, you're just taking this, you know, we talked about before, orange peelish texture, a bunch of spatter, and then you're knocking those down, and then you'll see the color change. It just goes from a dull gray to a whiter gray. Because all the lines are getting smaller. We're at 240 grit now, and what we're going to do is finish up with just another primer anyway. It's the epoxy black primer. So we'll have a very straight base, and you'll see I'm still having highs and low spots here, but we've got this on thick enough that by the time you sand this down, all of a sudden it's the same drag. You just feel it, and it really gets easy. And it clogs up, you know, 240 gets clogged up real easy. And the rate of taking off decreases, where you're just wasting time unless you get this off and get that clean. But you can see it coming to shape already.
So they're dry now and good enough for the time being. There are some flaws, like where the antenna hole is. You can't really see it on film here, but Paul's got a few words on that.
Saying this is in primer. We still got to put the thing together. It's going to be driving for about a year, thrashing out everything else. And before you paint the final paint, there's going to be nicks and scratches. So a little depression right here, you know, you'll remember it. And then you address it if it really bothers you. I can't even see it. Unless somebody's getting down here and looking at it, give them a kick right in the ass if they're going to start picking your car apart. It's not like they're even going to be looking at a 74 Cutlass. When you're cruising at 55 miles an hour at nighttime, nobody's going to see any of that. You just want it to look like a solid, straight car and not a rust bucket.
This nose piece turned out pretty good. And this primer lays on pretty nice. It doesn't really orange peel like that gray primer, but this black primer really shows all the flaws, and it stays soft for a number of days. I just tipped it over to put the adjusting screws in and realized how soft that was up in front there. So I'm going to end the video here and we'll work on them wheel wells over there a little bit.